Thanks for doing this, and thank you to the whole staff and community of Fourth Presbyterian Church for including me in this. It's been a real privilege to be in ministry with everybody and to be able to talk about it a little bit. My full title is actually Associate Pastor for Evangelism and Young Adults. And on my way back into being in ministry at Fourth, that was something that we actively negotiated, was whether I was going to be a part of that ministry or not, and how that did or did not align with new members. And to me, it was a really important reality that growing among young adults and reaching out well to younger populations was something that I thought Fourth really needed to continue to do well. It had a strong history before me. I think it has a great current record of doing that still. And that's part of what I think keeps Fourth really vibrant. And so for me, what I guess I'm proud of, especially in the years since I've been gone and looking back, is the way that I was able to be a part of creating a community for young adults where people could really be honestly themselves and come and participate in church in really meaningful ways without having to set aside the sort of messier realities of their lives as young adults or the honest things that they were enthusiastic about to fit into so-called church culture. And to see some of those people now settling down, raising families at Fourth, becoming officers, serving in really meaningful leadership positions there, that's something that I feel like I'm proud to have been a part of, that ongoing legacy of Fourth being a place that has involved young adults all the way back to, I'm sure it was even earlier, but if you think about what started Chicago Lights and stuff like that back in the day, it was young adults going into neighborhoods with a heart for mission and for wanting to be involved in making their city a better place. So yeah, that's something that I am really proud of, and maybe that's the only thing I have to hang on to, because when it comes to evangelism part, as evangelism associate pastor, I oversaw the single largest drop in the number of members on the rolls in Fourth Church history. So that's not something to be proud of, but it just shows that church life was really rapidly changing. And so Fourth always being willing to think about, all right, who's next? Who aren't we including? Who do we need to reach out to more? It is essential for it to continue to be a vibrant community. When young adults get involved in a congregation, you don't have to make everything be about just having fun or adapting to what young adults like to do socially. Towards the later part of my time working with young adults, I just remember a period of time, and I think some of the young adults that I work with are still doing this and have passed that tradition on to others. They developed this tradition of spending Holy Week together, right? Going to Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, eating meals together, almost keeping visual throughout the weekend, and then celebrating together on Easter Sunday. And I remember a particular Sunday, the front two pews all on one side, just being filled with young adults worshiping Easter Sunday together. And so to me, that says that it's not just fun. It's not just flashy things that young adults want. They want authentic community. And that's what they were able to find at Fourth. And a lot of times I think people might look at a tall steeple church like Fourth and think maybe that place is too stuffy or too set in its ways to be comfortable as a space of belonging for young people. And I absolutely think that that's not true, right? As long as you allow them to be themselves and give them space to develop authentic relationships, then those sorts of things happen. And so that's one of my fondest memories, is remembering looking at all of them and thinking, they could be anywhere else in the city right now, enjoying their weekend, and yet they really want to be here, and they're with each other in a place where they feel at home. Enlisting some people, there's so many other people you leave out, right? Yeah. So, but I do have to say, thanks to Hugh Halverstadt, right, who was in charge of the residency when I first came in, and unfortunately, Hugh's no longer with us, but he had such a big role in helping people come into ministry in so many different contexts, both at McCormick Seminary and then at Fourth Church. But he was a really gentle, guiding voice in all of that. And there were other people that I worked with in terms of the ministry of evangelism, right? There were some chairs of the committee that were very enthusiastic and were willing to put in the work and help me out, but also held my feet to the fire. And among those are people like, Don Allerton, Nan Birmingham, who they really believed in Fourth Church and believed that people could benefit from being a part of it. So they weren't going to settle for us not doing our best in terms of, presenting a welcoming face and getting things done in terms of welcoming people in. And then, one of the real gifts of being at Fourth, I think, as a staff person in general, but particularly as a part of the pastoral staff, is you're just surrounded by people who are really good at ministry, and you get to learn from them, and you get to, just have conversations and process stuff with them. So just being able to sit around that table and to learn from heads of staff like John Buchanan, and we were just talking earlier about Dana Ferguson, seeing the way that she led and balanced family life with work life and all that sort of other stuff, and getting to learn from her every day. And then with Shannon coming in and seeing how she dealt with all those changes and the challenges of coming in as a new head of staff, that's something that I've carried forward into my position now, serving a church in Silicon Valley that's very different, but still a lot of the leadership challenges and the challenges around transition are similar. And so that's a lot that I've learned from. But the one person for me that I have to lift up really as a key mentor in terms of all this process, both as my direct pastoral supervisor when I was a resident, and then sort of receiving this ministry of evangelism and young adults from him is Callum MacLeod, right? And he serves over in Scotland now. He's gone back home, but I will never forget the fact that when I first started as a resident, he said he liked the idea of a residency model because he saw ministry as a craft more than a profession, that sort of a master craftsperson will hand down to an apprentice, and that you learn by doing and by observing somebody who's good at doing it, but by doing together as well. So that's kind of the approach he took to working with me. And I received so much wisdom and good insight, a lot of laughter sometimes, and the opportunities to mess up, but also to be taught through that in caring ways. So I'll always be grateful to Callum for the way that he has brought me through. So yeah, I'm really I really think that for Fourth as a community, as a place that's always seen itself not just as wanting to be on top of its game in ministry, but also as a place where you welcome in people who are younger and newer to this, to raise them up and to send them out as gifts to the rest of the denomination, to the wider church universal. That's, I think, a big part of Fourth's legacy. And I hope it will continue to make those kinds of investments, because when I think about all the different people around the country who are doing really good ministry, who were shaped by Fourth in some ways, and when I think about the things that I learned about what it means to be just a person of faith, somebody who cares for others, who is a good work colleague to other people, I learned a lot of that at Fourth. When I started out my residency at Fourth Church, I came in probably with I guess you could call it a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I grew up in immigrant congregations that often were very marginalized and struggling. I went through seminary serving through some of those congregations in the Chicagoland area, in youth ministry and English ministry and different things like that. And I didn't think that there was much for me to learn from a place like Fourth, aside from how to work the system, because it just seemed like it was this big juggernaut machine, right, with a lot of wealth, and that I would pick up the pieces that I could learn from it and just move on. And it wouldn't really be a part of the kind of church that I felt like I belonged to. But in terms of that process of learning from others, having colleagues that were really gracious and kind and wise beyond, anything that I could have imagined existed in a place like Fourth. I think of somebody like John Boyle, right? He's in some ways a story of a really heroic American person, right? Who lived a life of service and gained deep wisdom through experiences of suffering and stuff like that. Getting to learn from people like that, and to hear really great preaching all the time, and to think about what it means to be to have excellence be a good thing in worship rather than some sort of, idol that distracts us from the real point of worship. That was really good for me to learn. And so I just think the ability to learn that just as you can't judge a small struggling church by its cover, right? That there's maybe nothing good going on there. All the things that I learned about Chicago Lights, about the Elam Davies Social Service Center, the urban farm and stuff like that, and that continuing commitment that I know was hard for some folks to negotiate at the church, but to see that continue and all those sorts of other things, it really changed my impression of the kind of church that I wanted to serve and what I thought being a good pastor would mean. And so yeah, I obviously I serve a very large, mostly white congregation now, and I believe that that's a place of really important ministry where we can continue to grow and build relationships. So that's something that that along with the just real importance of being in ministry as a team with other people, both clergy and lay together, is something that I carry forward and I really treasure from my time there.